Do you fancy 6 origin stories accompanied by a snooze fest of a plot? If so, have I got the show for you. In all seriousness, from the mind of James Gunn comes a band of misfit monsters launching the new DCU. This is the story of Creature Commandos Season 1. Princess Alana Rostovic is negotiating for America to exploit her country's untapped oil reserves. However, Pokolistan is currently under siege by the rogue Amazonian sorceress, Cersei. This is where General Richard Bill Flagg Sr. comes into the picture. Thanks to the events of The Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, Waller discovers a loophole and assembles a new Task Force M comprised of monsters. Enter The Walking Dead, Chernobyl, The Terminator, The Shape of Water, and an overgrown unhinged weasel. You could say that the main characters are some kinda creature commandos? The princess welcomes her security detail and wastes no time seducing the team leader. Anywho, the bride returns to her birthplace, which she neglected to mention is just down the street. Unbeknownst to them, Frankenstein gets word of his bride's arrival. The bride was created to satisfy Eric Frankenstein's desire for a soulmate. But when her personal space was violated, Frankenstein murdered their father in a fit of rage, only to discover the bride did not reciprocate his love. Nevertheless, his delusional, empty-headed peanut brain thought she was just playing hard to get. For nearly 200 years, General Flagg finds himself in a compromising position, only this time, he submits to his intrusive thoughts. A team-building exercise from last night means Dr. Phosphorus hates his guts a little less and is gracious enough to allow him a whole 60 seconds before pursuing the escapees. Just then, Cersei activates her trap card. The bride is insufficiently armed, and a leak in Nina's fishbowl renders her a fish out of water. Next up is a, not that it needs to be said, Nazi-detesting relic from World War II. The Tin Man's sole purpose was to ensure Nazis regretted their life choices. G.I. Robot became a science project, fell into the hands of a pro-Nazi collector, got slapped with a prison sentence, and the rest is history. Turns out they are in no real danger at all because the real danger is back at the castle. The Commandos return just in time for G.I. Robot to steal the show until Cersei decommissions the Tin Man. Just before Princess Alana suffers the same fate, the Weasel gives her a back scratch, and Phosphorus gives her a tan from Wish.com. But she's all like, "You've doomed us all, you Egypts." The Weasel befriended school kids, but a senile Popeye had other ideas. The American nutjob got all up in somebody else's business and shot up the school, which culminated in a lethal explosion. The Weasel attempted to rescue the only survivor, though it was riddled with bullets and detained before it could. So, if you happen to be doing face muscle exercises right now, I wouldn't blame you. Back on American soil, Diebeard from Peacemaker explains how most of that show is canon to the new DCU. Cersei proceeds to justify her actions with a premonition featuring World War III, in which an evil Queen Rostovic brings about the apocalypse. An expert on all things Themyscira confirms that the witch's Jedi mind tricks are legit based on hearsay evidence, which has Waller soiling her pants as she dispatches the Creature Commandos back to Pokolistan for the real final boss. Moreover, Frankenstein misinterprets the situation and assaults Flagg for stealing his bride. Once they clear the air, they agree to help one another. Cleanup on Aisle 4 resulted in Frankenstein going for a swim and being rescued by a blind woman. She grew quite fond of his company, but ironically, he was the one blinded by love. Frankenstein put her out of her misery and thus began his 2 centuries of rejection. This is Waller's expert on Themyscira? Something doesn't add up here, as it looks like she graduated from clown college. That's because the real Professor McPherson expired, and Clayface has been walking around in her skin. General Flagg is beaten to within a centimeter of his life due to a skill issue, until Frankenstein resorts to electroshock therapy. Flagg made a phone call earlier, which means Task Force M walks right into a trap, yet they all manage to, say it with me, escape by escaping. Dr. Phosphorus leveraged mobster money from Rupert Thorne to fund his cancer research, so naturally, they murked his family and disposed of him. Or so they thought. Instead of transforming into a godlike naked blue man, he emerged as just a naked green man. He then got revenge on Tony Soprano and assumed his operations. I'd hate to dash your hopes and dreams, but our wanted fugitives don't accomplish much in the penultimate episode. Nina and the bride break a few hearts, the Weasel hangs out with Taylor Lautner, and Phosphorus becomes a babysitter. Finally, all the main characters magically reconvene in cinematic Zack Snyder fashion to eliminate the supposed final boss. Nina Mazursky was born with abnormalities, so her father turned her into a fish who was then bullied in school and ran away. She was eventually drafted onto this show and rendered helpless to stop American police officers from giving her the Batman starter pack. Waller is typically 10 steps ahead, but this time she's dumb as rocks. Clayface impersonated her lie detector, meaning they've been set up by Cersei. She rushes to call off the assassination, hoping it's not too late. Unfortunately, this is all the screen time Frankenstein could afford. The hydrophobic monsters proceed to peer pressure Nina into finishing the job, but the princess expertly navigates the knife against her like a John Wick movie. Oh, there's her phone call. After it's all said and done, the princess turns out to be exactly the textbook supervillain Cersei described. The sexed-up witch is her only obstacle to world domination, which is why she teamed with Clayface to get her killed. Mission accomplished. Lastly, the bride gets a preview of the Season 2 roster. That about sums it up for Creature Commandos Season 1. Make of this what you will, I'm just a messenger.